Hey, what's up you guys? I hope everyone is well. I just recently read 3 books by H.G. Wells and I thought I would just do a little bit of a bulk review video and talk about them. I have read The Invisible Man and The War of the Worlds before and I really enjoyed both of them and I was excited to read more of Wells. So the books that I read this month were The Island of Dr. Moreau, I think that's how you pronounce that one, I'm not completely sure. The First Men and the Moon, and The Food of the Gods. So I'm just going to talk about them in the order that I read them in. I also want to ask if anyone's interested in a video of my collection of SF Masterwork books. I don't have like the biggest collection, but I feel like I have a decent few at this point and I really like them, so I thought it'd be kind of fun to talk about them in a video. But if anyone's interested in that, let me know. If you have read any other H.G. Wells books other than the 2 that I've mentioned before and these 3, definitely let me know because I think these are all the ones in the SF Masterwork collection that are by him. But then obviously like Penguin Classics also have books by him and then obviously there's like hundreds of editions, really, let's be honest, of his books. But I've read all of like the most popular ones now after reading these 3. So if you have any suggestions of other ones I could read, definitely let me know because I really enjoy his work. I actually considered when I was reading these, I was like, oh, maybe I could make a video like ranking all of his books. And I looked up and he has like 30 fiction books and like 30 non-fiction books. And I was like, you know what, that is just too much. So that video will not be happening. But yeah, if you enjoy this video, please leave a like and please subscribe. And let's get started with the reviews.
The Island of Dr. Moreau.
The first book I'm going to talk about is The Island of Dr. Moreau, and again, pronunciation, not sure, but that's what I'm going for. And the basic premise of this one is that there is a scientist, Dr. Moreau, who is basically acting like God and experimenting on animals on this island to make them very humanoid and make them basically into human-animal hybrid type creatures. The experimentation in this is so scary and horrifying. I really hate animal abuse and this like got to me some of the things that he was putting animals through. It is actually kind of scary and I found that there was actually a lot of parallels to Nazi experimentation in World War II in the concentration camps, which is obviously an interesting parallel because this was written in the 1890s, I believe. It's written, you know, before World War II anyway. And the just imagery that conjured up in my mind from this book really reminded me of stories that I've heard from concentration camps, which was really scary and just shows you like how horrific a lot of the stuff in this book is. Out of the 3, this is the best, I believe. I really enjoyed the writing style in this. I have said before when I read The Invisible Man and especially War of the Worlds that Wells' writing feels incredibly modern, not so much in one of the other books that I'll talk about when we get to it, but in this one it just feels so modern. Like I would honestly believe that this book was written, you know, in the last 20 years if you gave it to me and didn't tell me it was a classic. And I think that it's very bingeable as well. Like I could not put this one down. I was absolutely just enthralled with it. I really liked the characters. I thought that Dr. Moreau as like a antagonist was interesting because he is the type of scientist where he truly believes that he's doing something great, like, and that is the scariest thing when people are doing something that's horrific but they don't even know that it's horrific. Like they genuinely think they are like advancing, you know, nature itself. And I just thought it was very well executed. I think that out of the 3, this was the one where it had the best premise and the best execution and the best writing as well. I just absolutely enjoyed this book so much. And I only give it 4 stars on Goodreads, but I think that I should actually maybe bump it up to 5 stars because the more I think about it, the more I speak about it, I really enjoyed this. Like I said, it is the most horrific out of the 3. Like the atmosphere that is built up in this is just so scary and just everything about it I really enjoyed. So I would highly recommend that you check out The Island of Dr. Moreau if you have not already because it is definitely one of his best books, I believe. The second book that I read is The First Men and the Moon, and this one is H.G. Wells' exploration of space. And in this book, a scientist and a normal, just English countryman spark up this friendship, and we are seeing through the eyes of just the normal man, and they are experimenting with this new element that is basically like a zero gravity type thing, and they manage to make a space shuttle that takes them up to the moon. And when they land there, they discover that the moon is actually hollow and there's a whole alien society underneath the surface of the moon. And from there, we basically just explore not only the surface of the moon, which is very entertaining. I really liked how unique the surface of the moon itself was. And then we obviously meet the alien society and figure out some different things about how they live and how they work and stuff like that. And I just thought this was a very creative book. The last 30 pages, however, really dragged it down for me. So I was quite entertained all throughout this, exploring the different culture of like the moon people who are called the Selenites, I believe. And, just the whole world of the moon, and also just like the stakes, because, well, I don't want to spoil it, but there is like quite high stakes about, can they actually get back home? And was it a mistake coming here? And obviously we're seeing it more through the eyes of the normal man who is basically like starting to panic, and he's like, oh my god, why am I here? Like, I'm just a normal English guy, like I should not be on the moon. What have I got myself into? And then the scientist who is very much like, no, we need to learn everything we can about this culture. And there is quite a big clash between the two of them. We have like a science versus, brawn type thing, like brain versus brawn, science versus just like, pure human instinct. I don't know how to really describe it, but the two characters clash, and their relationship / friendship dissolves quite quickly because of the situation they're in. And I just thought it was really interesting how he contrasted the two different points of view. But like I was saying, the last 30 pages, I can't go into it without there being spoilers, but basically, there's a big thing obviously in writing where you're supposed to show things to the reader and not tell. And I honestly don't really know the difference a lot of the time. Like, when I'm reading a book, it's not something I pick up on and I don't really think about, is this showing versus telling? It doesn't really come to me naturally. But this is probably the first time ever actually that I noticeably was like, okay, I'm just being told exactly like what has happened without there being any kind of like emotional response being built for me, or any, feeling, or I don't know. It was just all telling, no showing. And it actually did get quite boring, which is weird because there actually was quite a lot going on, but it's just the way it was written, those last 30 pages, I just did not like it at all, which brought the whole rating of the book down. But overall, I do think this one is definitely worth your time, and I think that, a lot of people might not even be bothered by like that last 30-page section. It just brought my entertainment level down quite a lot from, I was definitely a 4-star for this one, and then it brought it down to a 3-star for me, just because it got kind of boring, which was a shame. But overall, I think it was really interesting. I think it was very unique. I think it was creative, like what he'd done with the moon, basically turning it into a living planet with not only like a humanoid type, no, they're not humanoid as in like how they look, just like basically the human equivalent of the moon people, and then also there's like moon equivalents of animals, and then just plants and everything, like the society. I think it is really creative and worth your time.
H.G. Wells' The Food of the Gods, for a taste of hell.
And then the third and final, and also my least favourite book that I read, was The Food of the Gods. And I was so disappointed in this one because I had never heard anything about it ever, but I owned it just because I bought all of these like as a set. And when I read the premise, I was like, oh my god, that sounds so good. And it started off so good. So this book is about scientists who create this food supplement where any growing thing, so if an adult takes it, it doesn't affect them, but if a child or a baby, whatever, takes it, it basically turns them into giants. But it doesn't affect only humans, it affects plants and animals and basically anything that can grow, it affects. So I thought, okay, this is such a cool premise and it has like so much potential, and then it just like fizzled out into nothing. So this book is split up into 3 different parts. It's like book 1, book 2, book 3. But book 1 itself actually feels like 2 separate books to me. I would actually say this is like a 4-part book. And the first half of book 1 is so good. It was exactly what you expect. Basically, this isn't spoilers because it's the first like section, but the food of the gods, as they call it, gets loose, and the animals in like the barn area where it's got loose start to grow. So we have like giant rats attacking people, and plants going crazy, and the giant rats were so scary. It was like, actually so thrilling to read. Like, it was very big, much horror vibes. That's not good English at all. But yeah, there was a lot of horror vibes, a really tense atmosphere. And then that section of the book ends and we go into the section where the food is starting to affect the humans because it's being fed to babies. And again, you think, okay, this is going to be such an interesting premise, but it honestly is kind of boring. It doesn't really go anywhere that is that interesting. Like, it goes exactly where you would expect it to go if you were making this plot sound boring in your head. I don't know how to really describe it without like going to spoilers at all, obviously, but I just think that there was so much potential here and it just fizzled out into basically nothing. Another issue with this book for me is that unlike the other two, The Island of Dr. Moreau, although Dr. Moreau is like a scary antagonist, he's also really interesting. And there is actually, which I didn't even mention because he isn't too relevant, but like the narrator of the story is like a normal man. So he is like interesting and you can also sympathize with him because he's in this horrific situation. And then the first men and the moon, again, we're hearing from like a just normal guy and we actually don't really sympathize with him. In our case, the narrator is more of the antagonist and it's the scientist that we more sympathize with. But in this one, there is no characters you sympathize with at all. They're all pretty horrible or just like negligent. How do you say that word? I don't know. Basically, they're all bad at their job. They're all like to blame. And then you would like think you would sympathize with, for example, the babies that the food is given to, but they have like no characterization. They don't even have names. There's one of them that's known as just like the princess, and then, you know, the scientists in this, one of them is like Dr. Redwood. So his baby, who is one of the ones that is given the food of the gods, is then just called like Redwood's son. And they just have like no personality, no characterization. So even though like on a human level, you would obviously feel bad for these babies being given this stuff, like in terms of like a book, there's nothing to them. Like, they're just blank slates, to be honest. So I think this one was the most disappointing just because it had so much potential, and the start with like the giant rats attacking, like I loved that. I wish he went more into that and just had, you know, basically an infestation of giant animals attacking London, for example, which is what you think you're going to get, and then it doesn't really go there. It's mentioned at parts that these like animals are like still attacking people and stuff, but the focus then moves on to more like the human side. And I don't know, it just kind of fizzled out into nothing. So I would not recommend this one as much. I still think it's okay, but the other two were much better. So that was my review of these three books by H.G. Wells. Again, it's The First Men in the Moon, The Food of the Gods, and The Island of Dr. Moreau. Let me know which of these sounds most interesting to you. I definitely would recommend reading The Island of Dr. Moreau. The other two were good. They're just not as like iconic, I would say. This one is like genuinely really, really good, and I hope more people read it and more people talk about it, because I don't really see it getting that much love on BookTube. I don't see H.G. Wells in general getting much love on BookTube, and when he does, it's obviously usually The War of the Worlds. Even The Invisible Man, which is like really, really famous and influential, I don't really see people read that much, but yeah, I just really like his work. And again, if you also want to see a little collection tour of these SF Masterworks, and then I want to talk about just like why I like these editions and stuff as well, let me know if you're interested in that. And if you have watched this far, leave a little alien emoji, because H.G. Wells, obviously, sci-fi. Why did I even need to explain that? And yeah, if you've not subscribed before, please subscribe if you enjoyed this video. And if you have subscribed before, please leave a like. And I will see you in my next video.